Let's now talk about a few familial multiple coagulation deficiencies in which there are multiple factors deficient at the same time. A couple of them are important, which we are going to talk about. The first one is a combined deficiency of factor 5 and factor 8. And the other one, which we are going to discuss, are the multiple deficiencies of the vitamin K dependent coagulation factors. Let's first talk about the combined factor deficiency of factor 5 and factor 8. Now, this diagram might seem very complicated on the first glance, but you don't have to remember everything which is on this slide. The main concept to take from this slide is this is the endoplasmic reticulum and this is the Golgi apparatus. We know that the ribosomes on the rough endoplasmic reticulum, they secrete the proteins, and then that protein goes post-translational modification in the Golgi, and then that is secreted. What happens in case of combined deficiency of factor 5 and 8 is the transport to the Golgi from the endoplasmic reticulum in these COP2 vesicles that is impaired. Because of certain genetic abnormalities, these vesicles which contain the factor 5 and 8, they cannot be transported to the Golgi to undergo the post-translational modification and then further on secreted. So this leads to deficiency of these factors 5 and factor 8. A combined deficiency of these two disorders, they can be deficient separately in a few people, but in a smaller percentage of people, there is a combined deficiency of factor 5 and factor 8. So this leads to abnormalities with coagulation or abnormalities with clotting. Most of these patients, a large majority of them are asymptomatic and they don't have any symptoms going through their normal routine. They can have accidental increase of APTT or when they undergo their testing or increase in the prothrombin time. But apart from that, there can be a few delayed bleeding episodes, a few epistaxis episodes as in their childhood. But overall, it is a very well managed abnormality, and these patients do not have a lot of symptoms, and we do not need to treat them. Most of it takes care of it on their own. A lot of people even don't know that they have these bleeding disorders. So this combined deficiency of factor 5, and it is one of the common ones among the rare disorders, and very novel in this regard that it is a combined factor deficiency as compared to a separate factor problem. The important one here to discuss the multiple deficiencies of vitamin K dependent coagulation factors. Now, vitamin K is very important in the coagulation profile. It basically carries out the gamma carboxylation of a lot of factors which are dependent on vitamin K. The factors that are dependent are factors 2, 7, factor 9, 10, and 11. These are the vitamin K dependent coagulation factors, and apart from that, protein C and protein S, which are basically antithrombotic, which are anticoagulant proteins present in our blood, which is secreted by the liver. All of these depend on vitamin K for their activation. And how does vitamin K activate it? It basically carries out the gamma carboxylation of the glutamic acid residues on these coagulation factors on these anticoagulant proteins. We're going to basically draw a flow chart which is going to show how the vitamin K activates this coagulation cascade, and how the vitamin K during this cascade undergoes movement from the reduced form and the oxidized form. First, I'm going to play all of this so that you can have a thorough understanding after the whole of this flow chart is displayed. Then we are going to go through it step by step. Now, let's start from here. Vitamin K needs to be in its reduced form to undergo its functions. It is one of the fat-soluble vitamins along with the vitamin A, D, E, and K. So, infants at birth, they are naturally devoid of vitamin K. Vitamin K is generally made by our gut flora. The bacteria in the gut, which are good bacteria, they generally secrete vitamin K. And an infant, when he's born, his gut is sterile. There are no bacteria there. So at birth, all of the infants are given vitamin K injections. And if they are not given vitamin K injection, there is a chance of bleeding. And especially if someone who is premature or a low birth weight, they have an increased incidence of bleeding if the vitamin K is not given. So it's a normal routine procedure, or a routine standard procedure to give vitamin K injections to all of the infants at birth. So vitamin K deficiency can develop in someone who did not receive the vitamin K injection at birth, or it can be a smaller portion genetic abnormality which is very rare. Most of the time in the adult population, it is because of certain disorders of malabsorption in which the vitamin K is not properly absorbed, or excessive use of the antibiotics, which generally kills our gut flora and leads to an imbalance of the bacteria in the gut that produce the vitamin K. So that can give rise to a vitamin K deficient picture. What vitamin K does is, in its reduced form, vitamin K carries out the carboxylation of the glutamic acid residues. These glutamic acid residues are present on the coagulation factors and in their inactivated form. When these glutamic acid residues are carboxylated by the gamma carboxylation, which is carried out by vitamin K, these glutamic acid residues are converted into the gamma carboxyglutamate or the gamma carboxyglutamic acid, and this leads to activation of these clotting factors, the factors 2, 7, 9, 10, and 11, and along with protein C and S, which are the anticoagulant proteins. These activated factors now can perform their function of coagulation. In the absence of vitamin K, this necessary gamma carboxylation step does not take place, and that does not lead to activation of these coagulation factors. During this process, vitamin K is converted into its oxidized form. And to convert this oxidized form to again the activated vitamin K form, which is the reduced form, we need the enzyme epoxide reductase. This enzyme is very important in the activation of vitamin K, and without it, the vitamin K cannot be converted from its oxidized to the reduced form. You must be familiar with the drug warfarin. The warfarin acts by inhibiting the enzyme epoxide reductase. So basically, it creates a state of vitamin K deficiency in the body, and that's why warfarin is used as an anticoagulant. In the presence of warfarin, the epoxide reductase will be inhibited and vitamin K will not be activated, and the factors which are related to the vitamin K activation, they will not be activated. So the body will be an anticoagulant state. So this was an overview of about how the vitamin K deficiency can affect the coagulation cascade. We're going to discuss this further in this slide. This will give you a even further or clear indication. This is basically the same concept which is presented in a different way. The vitamin K in the reduced form, which is the activated vitamin K, it is needed to carry out the gamma carboxylation. The gamma carboxylation on the prozymogens. The prozymogens are the inactivated form of the clotting factor. So when the carboxylase enzyme is activated in the presence of vitamin K, the glutamic acid residues on the prozymogens, they are gamma carboxylated and they are converted into their activated forms. And this needs the reduced form of vitamin K. And to convert the vitamin K into its reduced form, we need the enzyme epoxide reductase. So this is basically the same concept depicted in a different way. So multiple coagulation deficiencies, the important ones here to remember are factor 5 and 8 deficiency, which is generally asymptomatic, and then someone who is vitamin K deficient, either due to a liver disease or any other problem, they can have problem with the vitamin K dependent coagulation factors.